Spent a few weeks down around the town of Rhodes recently. Don't know if you ever passed through it, though. Fella told me about these two old plantation families there, how they had the seeds falling out. How one of them had hidden a big old pile of gold somewhere.
During Chapter 3 of Red Dead Redemption 2, the gang finds themselves in Lemoyne. Lemoyne is a warm, diverse region, swamped with problems, old and new. But it doesn't take long down here to find one particular problem that stands out among the rest, or at the very least most of the rest. Lemoyne may have a deep history of slavery, but the history of two families goes almost equally as deep. And it's these two families' feud that is the topic of today's video. I am of course talking about the Greys versus the Braithwaites. Special thanks to Joe Skeleton for suggesting this video be made. The council of my 17 conflicting personalities have made note of your contribution. In today's video we are going to be exploring the origins of this feud, and briefly the events of the story as they mark the end of it, before capping off by exploring the aftermath. So please get yourselves nice and comfortable as we go down the rabbit hole of the Greys versus the Braithwaites. The Greys immigrated to America in 1755, when Jacobite supporters in Scotland began hunting down and killing Scottish loyalists who had reported against them in the uprising 10 years beforehand. Ross Grey was one such informant and had been paid for his services by the Duke of Cumberland in cash, cattle and land confiscated from his Jacobite neighbour. Due to being hunted, the Greys fled Scotland and arrived in Scarlet Meadows, Lemoyne, at which point it was occupied by the French. It's here where the Grey family quickly established themselves, taking advantage of slavery, bringing in high production of tobacco and cotton, covering up their true reasons for leaving Scotland, portraying themselves as exiled Jacobites. The Braithwaite family originated from England and established themselves in America by the year 1799, and not dissimilarly to the Greys, took advantage of slavery and amassed a large slave plantation, and both families quickly became among the richest and most powerful families in the region, occupying equally massive estates almost right next to each other, only separated by the small town of Rhodes. By the turn of the 19th century, both families were on speaking terms at the very least and appear to have had a working relationship. But that wasn't to last, as in 1806 Lucille Braithwaite gave the location of a significant sum of gold, supposedly hidden by the Braithwaites, to Douglas Grey. Douglas Grey, with the consent of Lucille Braithwaite, stole this gold from the Braithwaites and also stole some gold from his own family in order to fund groups dedicated to abolishing slavery. Henceforth, the Braithwaites believe the Greys stole from them, and vice versa, the Greys believe the Braithwaites stole from them, locking both families in a violent feud. In reality, the culprits Lucille Braithwaite and Douglas Grey plotted to steal from both families together. The stolen wealth was gone, and now each family believed the other had it. In 1865, the abolition of slavery badly impacted both the Braithwaites and the Greys, resulting in the loss of vast amounts of wealth. However, their presence and influence by 1899 is still significant. The arrival of the Van der Linde gang was the beginning of the demise for both the Greys and the Braithwaites. It didn't take Dutch Arthur and Hosea long to discover the feud between the two families and hear about the rumours of gold in the centre of it. So the Van der Linde gang devise a plan to get involved with the family feud and function as a proxy for both sides. Smooth-talking Sheriff Lee Grey grants Bill, Dutch and Arthur temporary deputy status within the state of Lemoyne, immediately exercising that with the assistance of Archibald MacGregor, taking down a moonshining operation run by the Braithwaite family in order to supply the militant gang, the Lemoyne Raiders, which of course leads to a bloody shootout resulting in the deaths of many raiders. Arthur stumbles across a Romeo and Juliet Easter egg in the form of Beau Gray and Penelope Braithwaite, and it becomes clear that everybody under the sun is aware of this forbidden romance, and becomes their messenger boy to begin with, and then somehow winds up in the middle of a women's suffrage movement. Whilst not immediately relevant, this love story does become relevant later on. Hosea attempts to sell the confiscated moonshine back to the Braithwaites, and Catherine Braithwaite sees right through this, sending Hosea and Arthur into Rhodes to the Grey Run Saloon to distribute the liquor for free and hurt the Grey family's income, which leads to a shootout with the Lemoyne Raiders, as this booze was initially meant for them. This mission functions as an obvious sign that the Van der Linde gang are in over their heads, and the Braithwaites and Greys are smarter than they're given credit for, but that one gets dismissed as the only person who voices these concerns is Arthur. And as we all know, nobody listens to Arthur. Hosea returns the remaining moonshine to Catherine Braithwaite as a peace offering, so all is forgotten. Arthur Morgan, Javier Escuela and John Marston meet up with Tavish Grey, the leader of the Grey family, who seems to be completely unaware that his family are descended from an informant against the Jacobite uprising, and sends the lads to steal the Braithwaite family's best horses, encouraging the rustling by claiming that the horses could make up to $5,000. Unfortunately, this turned out to be horse shit, and in the end the Van der Linde gang only got $650 for their troubles. Catherine Braithwaite then sends Arthur Morgan and Sean Maguire to torch the Greys' tobacco fields, which of course leads to a shootout in which many of the Greys find themselves dead. Setting a farm on fire doesn't usually go amiss, but you get the point. The Van der Linde gang have inserted themselves well and truly in a fight that isn't theirs, in the hopes that there's gold at the end of it. Of course, they were nowhere near as clandestine as they intended to be, and by this point the Greys and Braithwaites knew exactly who it was that was giving them problems, and devised their own plans to deal with the gang. Arthur Morgan, Bill Williamson, Sean Maguire and Micah Bell head into Rhodes to meet with some of the Greys. According to Bill, it's on the level, but Arthur isn't so sure. In reality, the Greys had drawn the four into a trap, which cost Sean his life. A massive shootout then follows in the town, which results in the deaths of many of the Greys, including Sheriff Lee Gray, after he reveals that he's entirely aware of who the Van der Linde gang are. Meanwhile, Catherine Braithwaite has Jack Marston abducted from the gang camp, invoking the full wrath of the gang, which results in all of her sons getting shot and killed, and her house being burnt down. After revealing that she sent Jack to Saint Denis with Angelo Bronte, the gang leave her. She runs back into the house and dies. And that's where the portion of the story dedicated to this Greys-Braithwaite conflict concludes. I think it's safe to assume that both of their influences has been greatly diminished, chiefly because most of the Braithwaites are dead and their estate has been reduced in value significantly, and also with Lee Gray dead, the Greys' influence over the town of Rhodes has been reduced. As for the Van der Linde gang, they didn't find any gold. As John puts it, it's another perfect scam. So they move along penniless nearer to Saint Denis in order to rescue Jack Marston, leaving behind a huge power vacuum created by the falls of both the Braithwaite and Gray families. If we return to the remains of the burnt Braithwaite estate later on in the story, we can come across the charred remains of Catherine Braithwaite. If we loot her body, we can find a brooch, which is always pretty neat. However, there is a more sinister and terrifying sight in a chained up outhouse behind the estate, which you can visit at any point, but I left it until now.
Oh, bastard! Oh!
This is Gertrude Braithwaite, Catherine Braithwaite's disfigured and mentally unwell child. Fearing that sending Gertrude to a sanitarium would result in the Braithwaite name being tarnished, they instead opted to lock her in an outhouse on their estate.
3, 4, 17, 29, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 17, 8, 9, 3, 1, 2, 4, 7, 5, 9, 1, 1.
During Chapter 6, Penelope Braithwaite contacts Arthur and asks him to help her and Beau Gray escape, so the family still have some influence. During this mission, if you head to the outhouse, Penelope will comment that once she's away, maybe she'll do something to help Gertrude. I do think at this point in the story though, Arthur is just a little past believing it though. Anyway, the pair intend to escape by train and Arthur helps out, fending off members of both the Gray and Braithwaite families, and then having to commandeer and drive the train to safety. Penelope offers to pay Arthur with an old family heirloom apparently worth a lot of money. Arthur remarks that this is the Braithwaite treasure, and then he can choose to accept or decline. In the end, she didn't manage to do anything for Gertrude, at least not successfully, as you can find her skeleton still locked in the outhouse. As for the Greys, if you head to the rear porch of their manor, you can find Tavish Gray dead. On the table next to him is a letter. This letter is from Malcolm Moffat of the University of Edinburgh, which reads as follows. Dear Mr. Gray, thank you for your long and well-researched letter regarding your ancestor. Forgive me, I was unclear if he was your great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather from your missive, and his ostracising and emigration from Scotland to the colonies in the aftermath of the uprising of 1745. I hate to be the bearer of apparent bad tidings, particularly when communicating with such a passionate Scot in exile as you describe yourself, but I am afraid our records are rather precise. I have made an extensive study of the spy networks of the Duke of Cumberland. As you may be aware, the Duke was an excellent record keeper, and it seems that the relative of whom you speak, Ross Gray, was unquestionably a well-paid informer. He was paid in both cattle and cash, and also rewarded in significant land holdings confiscated from his neighbour. That would explain why he did not leave Scotland until 1755, fully 10 years after the revolt. This was, of course, the year when a few Jacobite supporters began reprisals against known informers in the Highlands. I am sorry if this is not the news that you were looking for. The Jacobite era was a very complicated time in Scottish history, and certainly my antecedents are divided into rebels and loyalists. Being the progeny of a family of loyalists is certainly nothing to be ashamed by, at least I hope not. If you are ever in Edinburgh, I hope I can show you around the university. Yours sincerely, Malcolm Moffat. While the letter is dated 1895, I'm under the impression that this is the first time Tavish Gray laid eyes upon it, and it appears as if he died from shock after the fact. So I guess the Gray family secret is they aren't the Scottish patriots that they pretend to be. As for the town of Rhodes, the position of sheriff is taken up by a man named Harmon Thomas, who by 1907 had built a reputation for cleaning up the town of Rhodes and ridding it of the influence of the Greys and Braithwaites. So the aftermath of the conflict that we see in Red Dead Redemption 2 between the Greys and Braithwaites is the demise of both families and their subsequent loss of influence over the town of Rhodes and Scarlet Meadows overall. The only ones to truly get out are Penelope and Beau, taking with them a family heirloom. And so their chapter ends the same way it begins, with their own family robbing them. Thank you for watching this video, my friends. I really hope that you've enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. That would be super fantastic. And again, massive thank you to Joe Skeleton for giving me the idea to do this video in the first place. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe to my brand new history channel Decades, which will be starting to release content on the 19th of July, and it's really close to 2,000 subscribers, and I'd really love to hit that number. But don't feel pressured to, that's only if you're interested in history and moreover me presenting it with the assistance of my friends. Anyway, you can find a link to that down in the description. But with any luck, I'll be seeing you all soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.